Hey guys, so for my graduate research fellowship program application, the plan that I propose largely revolves around research methodology, namely replication research. Before I get into that, I just want to talk briefly about some of the background that led me to this subject. So I originally was interested in romantic relationship processes, and this eventually did evolve into methodology and replication. Because of the experience that I had right from the start, I was involved in replication research. When I joined the Social Relations Collaborative, they had a very multidisciplinary research approach. So they were studying many different subjects, some of these listed here. So I got a very broad view of research, but still my interests related to the same thing, romantic relationships and replications. So as soon as I came in at a very good time for replication studies because it was right around the time where the scandal came out about Diedrich Staple, which, as we discussed in class, he invalidated some of his results, put out very many papers, led to a lot of bad things happening to the people who worked for him. And then it's also marked the opening of the Center for Open Science, which is a facility of an organization that promotes open science, open research, the open science framework, very transparent research. So we were also working on a study where we were testing the Romeo and Juliet effect. So while we did not find findings that supported the claim that romantic or that opinions increase or negative opinions increase your relationship quality, we did find some results for the lesser known findings of the study. It also supported other results about the social network effect in which your family and family do affect your relationship. However, negative opinions from your friends and family led to negative outcomes in your relationship. So even though it was considered a failure for the study, for the replication, there was also significant findings found for another effect. So even though there was the one piece that was wrong, there was another piece that led to something very interesting. I also did my own study based on friendship violations, friendship rule violations, and I'll talk more about this later. But we did find, this is based on a study, and I conducted this as a replication and extension of this study, where in the original they found that women judged and were judged harshest in situations of rule violation. And I also wanted to extend it to see what would happen if a friend of a romantic partner were involved here instead of just your own friend. Would it be a potential mate poacher experience where you might be afraid that friend would steal your mate? But I'll talk about this later in the presentation. I was also involved in the Open Science Collaboration Reproducibility Project, which the findings did not bode well for replication. Not many of the studies successfully replicated, and that led to a lot of backlash about psychology as a whole and the validity of our research. So eventually, as I continue on, I do want to continue in reproducibility research and contribute to the knowledge of reproducibility. Also following the example of the reproducibility project, I want to practice complete transparency in my research, so utilizing the open science framework. And then eventually go on to continue research in a think tank like RAND or possibly academia. I have made some current progress on this goal. I am appointed as a Center of Open Science Ambassador, so I can promote open science projects. I also blog on the lab blog about open science and transparency in research replications. I'm working on organizing a reproducibility workshop next semester in conjunction with the Social Science Research Center and the Center of Open Science. And then also my thesis and dissertation is going to revolve around this topic. So my current research was largely inspired by the reproducibility project, by the Open Science Collaboration. It was a worldwide replication where over 100 studies were replicated with the permission of their original authors. And we also worked very closely with authors to try to work out as close of replication as possible. So only 36% of these 100 studies were successfully replicated. Which led to, as I said, a lot of backlash about, is psychology Can it be replicated? Is it valid? And it also pointed out a possible publication bias in which published papers were encouraged to be successful. Publications, journals don't really publish things that are not successful, that aren't interesting, possibly that are replications. So that discouraged a lot of further replication studies because it wasn't deemed interesting, it wasn't noteworthy. So what happened next after the reproducibility project was released was dubbed the replication crisis, in which there was questions about the validity of psychology as a whole. There's also a lot of attacks on current professors, current researchers, especially in the form of things like StatsBot, which went through online, would go through papers that have been published and identify statistical errors that they had made. And while it did identify a lot of errors, it should be noted that most of those errors were very small things that didn't affect the findings even when fixed. But it did encourage a lot of backlash on the researchers, and a lot of personal attacks on them. So it's not a very good thing. There's also pointed out there could also be a possible media bias, because with this replication effect, there came a lot of articles put out by the media. Psychology is doomed. Psychology cannot be replicated. Psychology is false. And that's not true. The study pointed out nothing more than that more research needs to be done, as most studies do. So I do want to look at this in the future, this media bias. So the plan for my research is that I want to establish a rate of reproducibility, something that's empirically supported and backed up by research, so that we can get a little bit more insight into how much psychology reproduces, possibly helping to get rid of the replication bias and this backlash that's been caused by the study. I also want to identify variables that can contribute to a successful replication. So some of the things that were mentioned by the reproducibility project was projects that registered beforehand, like on the Open Science Framework, projects that had a large effect size, things like that. I also want to see if there is this presence of a media bias in which media is more likely to report negative findings rather than positive, because it does greatly influence the reputation of psychology and faith in psychology. I think that's very important to look into. I also want to take note that it's possible that studies aren't so easy as a yes or no situation. Sometimes part of the hypothesis is supported and part of it's not, and that's something that we need to look into. So for my study, this is going to be a large-scale, multi-method approach with 5 studies in total. Right now, we're still working on it. So for study 1, I wanted to do a replication of my undergraduate study with friendships and rule violations. I'll talk more about this a little bit later. Study 2 is a large-scale archival study where we're examining the current rate of replication in published articles. So we're looking at the success of each hypothesis, not just the success of the replication as a whole. And this is also going to give us a chance to look at a possible publication and media bias by comparing successful replications reported in publications and successful replications reported by the media. So there should be, if there's no bias, there should be an equal percent. If there's not, then that can prove to a bias in one way or another. Study 3, we submitted the undergraduate project, Friendship Violations, to the Pipeline Project, which is it's similar to the Reproducibility Project, where the study has the potential to be replicated across the world, possibly multiple times in different cultures. So we'd be able to look at the results of that and add that to our understanding for reproducibility. Study 4 is with a study that my advisor is running called the School Safety Initiative, where it's a longitudinal 3-year study in schools looking at aggression. We will be working with the same students, the same schools, so this will be a very close population to be able to do replications with. So we're going to look at the measures and repeat those measures each of the 3 years. And then we're going to look at if those replicate or not, and as a close sample as we can get. And then study 5, I'm going to replicate a study each year of my graduate education, usually from the Journal of Marriage and Family, to combine with my interest in family relationships, romantic relationships, except this year. This year we will be replicating the undergraduate study, Friendship Rule Violations. So to go over the study with the time constraint, I can't really go over all 5 of these studies, but I do want to tell you about one that is already in process. So this is the Friendship Rule Violations, Your Friend or Mine, Differences in Perceived Acceptability of Violations in Opposite-Sex Friendships. So we have the rules of friendship from Argyle and Henderson. There were many of them, I believe 30, but we took 7 that we thought would be the easiest to put in the format that we're using for this study, and also that would be might show the more significant effects. So these are the rules, just to go over them briefly. A friend should not discuss which is said in confidence with the other person, emotional closeness and trust. Rule 2 should be faithful to one another, should volunteer help in time of need, should respect the other's privacy, should not indulge in sexual activity with the other person, so physical intimacy, should disclose to the other person's one's feelings and personal problems, emotional closeness and trust again, and should stand up for the other person in their absence. The gender and friendship does play a role. Studies have shown that gender does play a role in friendship. Self-disclosure and emotional support was found to be very important, especially for women, and it's possibly this effect could be found for women, especially just because of the importance that we place on our friendships and on our relationships. And then also with the study that I mentioned earlier from Lisa and Sinclair, found that women judge and are judged harshest in friendship rule violations, especially in emotional closeness and trust. Cross-gender friendships are a little less studied. We do know that media does repeatedly sexualize these encounters. The friends with benefits, the movies, all this stuff where they become romantic or where they need to become romantic, it doesn't really give a good basis for what to base your own friendship on when it's cross-gender. And then my own study that we did with a friendship violation study did find a double standard, where participants believe that they could maintain an opposite-sex friendship, but it shouldn't be something that their partner does. It was also found that emotional closeness and trust was least acceptable for your own friends, especially as a woman, but most acceptable for, or really wasn't a problem if it was your partner's friend, while the reverse effect was found with physical intimacy. So this project will be a direct replication of this. We expect to have 270 participants to go off of the 263 in the original. So it's a 2x2x7 mixed factorial design where we're looking at gender, friend relation, whether it's your own friends or your partner's friend, and within subject, friendship norm violation. So there's different norms I talked about previously. So we do have 7 vignettes, each based on a different norm violation, with 4 sets of these, in which a participant's friend was either the participant's friend or the participant's partner's friend, and the gender was manipulated. So participants were randomly assigned to one of these 4 sets with the 7 vignettes, where they had either all of their own friend that was a male, all of their own friend that was a female, all of their romantic partner's friend that was male, and all of their partner's friend that was female. And then we asked them what the appropriateness of the violation was on a 7.5 different scale, and their answer on that will determine our results. So here's just some vignette examples with a kiss on the cheek, and then won't combine that they won't tell you what's wrong. So we had an independent variable of friend gender and friend relationship, and a dependent variable of appropriateness. So our hypothesis was looking at basically the results that we found in the last study. If women are more disciplined than men, if people will be more tolerant of their own friends than they are of their partners, except for physical intimacy, and the same thing that they would be less tolerant, except for emotional closeness of trust. So you can see here, I'll see if I can point it. No, I can't. So you can see here with my partner's female friend, the square box, it's not, or it's very inappropriate as it's so low for a female, for their partner's female friend to stay over. When their own friends, and even their partner's male friend, it's a little bit more acceptable. Conversely, in failure to confide, my female friend, it's not okay for them to do that, especially as a woman. While the triangle at the very top of female, my partner's female friend, it's very acceptable for them to break their emotional closeness and trust. So with broader impact and intellectual merit, my goal here is to enhance knowledge of reproducibility and its methodology, as well as establishing a rate of reproducibility possibly given evidence for or against the replication crisis. Even if I'm unable to do so, I can still contribute to the field by identifying key concepts that could be improved in future research. Additionally, I can add to the groundwork by fellow researchers to contribute to a strong theoretical and empirically backed foundation for better understanding of the replication research. And ultimately, I have the potential to present a large-scale, long-term research endeavor that could identify key ideas for the future of psychological research and an understanding of one of the core aspects of our research. Thank you.